Okay, let's have a word of prayer and we'll get started. Father, we give you thanks for the privilege of exposing ourselves to a variety of cultures, mindsets, value systems, worldviews, and somehow, in your infinite wisdom, you made it possible for one gospel message and all of its implications to be applicable in all these cultures. That's beyond us. It's an amazing truth. But we come to acknowledge that only the God of the Bible could do this. So I pray that as we study, you give us humble hearts as we remember that this is a constantly moving target and that nobody has the corner on the market of knowledge about cultures and belief systems. And I pray that you would help us to approach these with honesty, with open minds, but also undergirded by the unchanging nature of your word, never allowing culture to supplant or replace the word of God, always evaluating what people do and what they think in light of what you have designed. I thank you for these students, and I pray that each one would find the class a blessing and encouragement as they move forward in their pursuit of your will plan for their lives. I pray in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so in-class students, we're recording this. This is being recorded for the online students as well, and so I may say something here or there that pertains to one group or the other. But I've got the syllabus open, and the Canvas course open. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to my little 1 minute and 12-second spiel, but basically it's a welcome to the class. And these are the main links that you'll need. The course syllabus is here, which includes the schedule. So just be aware that this course schedule is in the syllabus, and we'll look at that in a moment. Your list of textbooks required and suggested, technology requirements, class notes. Have you gotten the class notes yet? You can buy them or you can download them. I don't care how you do it. Either way is fine. PowerPoints. Okay, I have included all my PowerPoints on here. So, you might be thinking, well, then why come to class? Just, look at the PowerPoints and I'm good to go. Well, it's because I do some explaining, okay, along with the PowerPoint, so that won't be quite enough. And then, yes, there is a final exam in here, a study guide for that you'll take. And there's a midterm as well, okay? And to your chagrin, nobody can test out of the final exam. I used to do that in my old weak days, and I've toughened up now and grown up. So everybody takes the final exam. All right. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to download the course syllabus for us to take a look at. And close this. And zoom in a little bit more on that. Okay. So as I was mentioning earlier, this used to be a missions course. Now it's technically a gen ed course. It used to be called cross-cultural communication. It's now called cultural anthropology. What is the difference? Well, cultural anthropology would be the larger family name, and cross-cultural communication is one aspect of that. So we're going to spend most of our time really in this class dealing with cross-cultural communication. How do you communicate in general and the gospel in specific in a variety of cultures? And as I mentioned in my prayer as we began, we really, really have to approach this with humble hearts because there is so much we don't know about the dynamics of cultures. There's no such thing as a pure culture. I would like to ask you a question, even though this is syllabus day, I'd like to just get your thinking engaged by asking you to give me, I have two questions for you this morning. The first one is, can you give me a succinct, very basic definition of culture? There's really, you can't hardly go wrong, okay? Give me a succinct definition of culture. Yeah. Okay. Okay. It has to do with the way people act. All right, that's good. What else? Is it something you stick down your throat when you have a cold? Culture? Yeah. Okay, all right. Yeah, there are lots of different kinds of cultures, and you just alluded to that. FBBC is a culture of sorts, right? So it does have to do with geographic or spatial limitations. Where did you get that? That was good. Yeah, it sounds like something you thought through pretty carefully. That's neat. Say, can you, well, can you say that again, or at least kind of? Okay, all right, good. Yeah, and all of that. Right. Culture is really hard to nail down. It's hard to define because there are so many aspects involved in treating a culture. Good. And we'll look at some others when we get into the course starting on Thursday. Anthropology. Okay, when you think of anthropology, what comes to your mind? Okay. Now, you guys study anthropology in your doctrine class, right? That's not the same thing we're doing here. In doctrine class, you're really studying the theology of man as it's presented in the scriptures. We do touch on that. That's included. We can't escape that in our study because of our Christian worldview. But when we use the word anthropology in reference to this course, we're really talking about how man behaves, functions within a cultural context. All right? And obviously, we're going to bring the scriptures into that, but that's not the immediate reference to the word anthropology in this course. All right? Okay. All right. Some of you have heard this already because you've been in other classes, but I had to change my bio because we now have 7 grandchildren instead of 4, which used to be in here. My wife and I went for several years without any, and we thought, is this ever going to happen? Are we ever going to be grandparents? And all of a sudden, bang, 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 bang. And then our 7th one is actually due next month. So we're excited about that. Okay, course description, diversity of global cultures, equipping the student to engage them. Selected textbooks provide the student with basic tools for discerning cultural distinctions. Let me just pause there and say this. We don't even understand our own culture completely, not to mention foreign cultures, okay? So we're kindergartners, and even when we get to the end of this course, you're not going to walk out of here the last day of the semester saying, okay, now I've got a handle on cultures. Well, we're all going to walk out of here the last day of the course saying we understand cultures maybe a little bit better than we used to, or some of the characteristics, but it's a lifetime of study and discovery and modification of our views and things like that. Very, very dynamic. We will introduce the concept of cultural intelligence, which is a fairly new term, whereby the student is equipped to measure his or her ability to maneuver within cultures different from that which is familiar. We'll study how cultures deal with societal changes, and special attention will be given to 10 cultural values, sometimes called dimensions, that can be detected and analyzed in any culture. Countries of the world are also grouped into 10 geographic cultural clusters that reflect the values we study. So we'll look at 10 major values of any culture. You'll find those in any culture. Then we'll look at clusters of the world where certain values stand out. Okay, that's the idea there. Course rationale says it fits within what we're doing at Faith. Here are your textbooks. Now, notice the starred ones. Some of you read those in Intro to Missions. Okay? If you already read 3D Gospel and Foreign to Familiar in Intro to Missions, then you will default to these 2 books here, Cross-Cultural Conflict and Ministering Cross-Culturally. They're great books, okay? All these are really, really good books. So I'm just going to leave that up to you. When you report your reading, you're just going to report it according to your experience. Just curious, how many of you did read already 3D Gospel and Foreign to Familiar? Okay, most of you did. Okay, and if not, then there you go. And these are some other ones that are recommended. This one right here, Effective Intercultural Communication, is part of the Encountering Mission series. Lots and lots of books in that series, and they're all worth having. Ralph Winter and Stephen Hawthorne co-authored a book about this thick. Anybody delved into that book called Perspectives on the World Christian Movement? It's actually an entire missions curriculum in one book. And a team of guys travel around the country and they hold seminars teaching missions out of that book. And so there's a whole section in there on culture. And they're worth looking at. Case studies in there and things like that as well. All right, so what are the student outcomes and requirements? When you're done here, you'll be able to demonstrate a sufficient grasp of the general course content by earning adequate grades on periodic exams called quests. You're all familiar with quests, right? In my classes. All right, so there'll be exams over specific portions of the course material, and you'll see that on the course calendar, all right? And then you'll also record your reading in Livermore, the book, that's this one right here, Cultural Intelligence, okay? That one you'll see that on the calendar as well. You'll record that on Canvas with a simple yes or no, I finished it. And then there's the final exam. 2, interact with cultural anthropology authors by submitting 3 book reports. Here's where these other books come into play. You'll do book reports over the following 3 books or the optional ones for those of you who've read these 2 of these, okay? Each report should consist of a minimum of 500 words. That's about 2 pages, double-spaced. And by the way, you're not double-spacing because these will be done on Canvas, but it would be the equivalent of that. And be graded according to this rubric. Percentage of the reading you completed, 3 insights that you gained from the reading, and then your grammar and mechanics. Then you'll analyze articles treating a variety of anthropological topics by reading an article and reporting on it in class. Everybody's going to have an opportunity just to give a brief report of an article that you did in class. We're not going to discuss it necessarily. You'll just take a few minutes to share it with us just as an additive to what we're studying. And that'll come from the Perspectives book that I just mentioned. And this is on reserve in the library, okay? There are 2 editions on reserve, editions 3 and 4. So you can choose those first come, first serve, and let me know, what you want. The presentation will take 8 to 10 minutes and be graded based on evidence of familiarity with the article and effectiveness of the presentation. So here are your choices. So, you can see a few of them come from the 3rd edition. Most of them come out of the 4th edition. So I think what we'll do is Thursday, why don't you look over this list on Thursday, we'll start taking, or I mean, if you really want to be proactive and send me an email and say, Mr. Lonsberg, I'd like this one, again, it's first come, first served. So choose an article, but at least by Thursday, let's try to get these mapped out, okay? Find one that and again, they're on reserve in the library, so if you want to hop over there and look at one that looks interesting and make sure you'd like to do it, then that's fine. On online students, you're doing it differently. As you're aware, you're all going to be reading the same one, The Flaw of the Excluded Middle by Paul Hebert, this 3rd one right here, okay? So you guys in class, you're thinking about it, you can email me ahead or wait till Thursday and give me your choice in class. They're all good. All right, number 4, understand how people from other cultures behave in relation to the norms of their society by conducting an interview with someone from another culture and analyzing the cultural cluster represented by that person. Now this is the challenging part. I teach non-Christian religions previous semester, and the big challenge in that class is finding somebody from a different religious background to talk to interview. Some of you have had that class. It's going to be the same idea here, but instead of talking about their religion per se, that can be part of it, you're going to be talking more about general cultural characteristics from their ethnicity. Just how many of you already have somebody in mind that belongs to another cultural persuasion, ethnic background, okay? And okay, yeah, all right. So let me elaborate here a little bit for you. This is called a cultural profile. You're gonna there are actually 2 parts to this cultural profile: the person that you interview, and then also a study of the region that person is from. I'll explain. First, the personal interview is someone from a culture different than your own. And that can be somebody who has lived in the United States, but they have to, ideally it'd be somebody that's grew up in another culture. Um, but at the very least, it needs to be somebody that is in touch with their roots, if I can say it that way, okay? It may be a little nebulous, but I have to give you a little bit of elasticity here. Ideally, the interview should be face-to-face. That'd be really cool, but you can do a Zoom or some other, FaceTime interview as well. I'll take that. I don't want an email or text one. There needs to be verbality. Is that a word? I've never tried that word before. Verbality. Somebody look that up, will you? Tell me if that's a word. It is? Verbiage. But the word verbality shows up? Woohoo! Okay, that was weird. I just surprised myself saying that. When I was in Brazil learning Portuguese, I said all kinds of interesting things in the classroom. And Brazilians love to laugh, and it's a good thing because otherwise it would have been totally embarrassing. All right, verbiage should probably be the more common word, but verbality, we'll go with that. All right. Vocal and body language are important dynamics in the interview. Obviously on Zoom, body language is going to be very limited. If I'm talking to you here in the classroom, I tend to do this more, but if I'm on Zoom, you just see from here up, it's just a lot more awkward. So ideally, if you could do it person to person, that'd be great. Bicultural students from FEBC may be interviewed by only one person. I don't want you ganging up on people from another culture. Lana, you wouldn't appreciate it if everybody came to you and said, "Oh, you're from Japan, let me interview you," okay? Or Cora, from Germany. So if you do want to interview somebody who is from another country here on campus, please ask them first, has anybody interviewed you yet for cultural anthropology, okay? Do MKs count? That's a good question. I would prefer that you not use MKs, because if you understand anything about MKs, even though they're bicultural, okay, or in some cases kind of tricultural-ish, even though they live in another culture, they still very much identify as Americans. A lot of times in their homes, and even in if they live with other missionaries and their families, they still maintain a very American mindset. So I'd prefer that you try to find somebody that is an actual ethnically pertaining to that culture. All right? Okay. The topics covered should be varied. I've given you just some ideas here. You can go beyond this if you want to. What are language issues that they've dealt with, especially if they live here in the States and are bilingual? What are some body language peculiarities? If you've lived in another culture, when I was in Brazil, man, I'm telling you, I would do this, yes, okay, and I learned right away. You don't do that in Brazil. That means something that we won't mention here in this class. You do this, okay. So after 19 years in Brazil, I come back to college here, and every time I see somebody on campus, it's okay, it's like this. I feel like I'm out of the 60s. Yeah, man, cool. But I still, to this day, to do this, I just can't do it. So there is actually a proper way to do that and an improper way. But I'm just saying that's interesting. So, it's a good question to ask people. How people greet one another, okay? In some cultures, there's a way to greet somebody of a certain status, and somebody of another status gets greeted a different way, or according to age. Dietary customs, how privacy is viewed. Wow, that's a big one. Class distinctions within society, or caste, if you're dealing with India, for example. The influence of religion on society. What role does religion play? How much of an influence is there? The value placed on time versus people, huge. The role of family, all these are big issues. So it just gives you some ideas you can ask people. And if you just explain to them, look, I'm doing this as an assignment for the class, I'm curious, how your culture would deal with this. It can be a very fun experience. Report on the cultural cluster represented by the person interviewed. Okay, so if this person is from Germany, for example, okay, in addition to the interview, do a background study on Germany, the culture of Germany, and that will enrich, the whole experience for you, okay? And there are tons and tons of sources for that. I think I've given you some examples down here, yeah, but there are lots of places to go for that. Yeah. Okay. Now, you're wanting to interview a person from North America because it's different than your culture. How long have you been here in the States? Just one, yeah, go ahead. What? What was this professor thinking? Actually it is. It's part of the Anglo culture. If the Anglo culture takes in North America, United States and Canada, not Mexico, even though that's sometimes considered North America, Great Britain, the British Isles, that whole area, UK, and Australia and New Zealand. So it actually includes 3 geographically distinct regions in the world. Yep. So yeah, it did include it. You had me scared. Well, the fact that we're teaching in America would make that easy to happen. All right. Research the cluster of the person, giving special attention to his or her specific country, because most clusters have several countries in them. Attempt to include information about as many of the cultural dimensions as possible. You may also use maps, tourist information, anything else that contributes to a better understanding of that person's cultural context. And again, there are lots and lots of sites. All right, then what you're going to do is you're going to put all this together. The interview of the person and the background study. Results of both the personal interview and the cultural cluster study should be reported in one term paper following these guidelines. The interview and cluster study will be 2 divisions of the paper. Neither section should be more than 2/3. I'm just trying to keep it as balanced as possible, okay? The paper should be at least 2,000 words, which comes out to about 8 pages, I think, double-spaced, something like that. So it's a pretty hefty, but you'll be surprised doing this how quickly you'll fill up with the interview and with his back. There's so much stuff out there. And then you need to include a bibliography of at least 5 sources. Notice I don't refer here to peer-reviewed sources. And that's because in the realm of cultural studies, there is so much stuff out there that I want you to be able to use. I'm not going to demand that. I mean, it'd be nice if you included a couple of peer-reviewed sources on, the more technical aspects of the culture. But this is a little different kind of a term paper. Almost all of my term papers required peer-reviewed sources. But this one, I'm going to back off on just because I want you to really be able to mine as many sources as possible to get your information. Okay. And by the way, even though Wikipedia isn't normally used as it's not a peer-reviewed source, when it comes to maps and photographs, they get some of the best out there. Really, really helpful in that area. Okay, and can you include charts and maps and things like that? Of course, as long as the word count is right. All right, and then, yeah, use footnotes, not parenthetical notes. I don't know what other professors do in that area, but I know that as a school, we're trying to move students away from parenthetical notes more to footnotes, and part of that is because if you end up doing a master's, some sort of research paper, on a graduate level, most likely you will not be permitted to use parenthetical notes for that. I say most likely, it's probably not straight across the board. So we are trying to emphasize footnotes. And I remember the days when we had manual typewriters and you stuck a guide sheet behind the paper. Did your grandparents ever tell you about this? You had these guide sheets that would go behind the paper, so when you want to scroll it up on the typewriter, you can see behind there where the margin is. Then you had to kind of guess where the end of the line would come and where the footnote goes. I mean, oh man, those were the days. I do not long for them. And there's your rubric. So the general content, obviously 60%. Grammar, form, and spelling, important. 5 sources, 20%. And if you want to do some extra credit for this class, then you can do another interview, or you can read 50 pages from a book on the subject and submit a report. You can do up to 2 of those. So you can gain 4 extra percentage points in total if you want. Yes? I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Pam? Right. Well, yes and no, okay? Because they both fall into the same cluster, which is basically Latin America, okay? But within the Latin American cluster, and Brazil's in there too, and they don't even speak Spanish, there are lots of cultural variances. Oh, in other words, could you interview somebody from another country in Latin America? Yes, you could. I would encourage you to do it with somebody who's, all those countries are different. As you know, the Spanish is different in every one of those countries. You speak somebody in Argentina, you probably have a hard time understanding them, maybe not. But yes, you may. If you want to, yeah, do you have somebody in mind from another? Okay. Yes. Canada and the US are quite similar. Well, they're part of the same cluster, which is the Anglo cluster, but I would allow that. There are, in fact, let me say this. Sometimes we overassume similarity. Does that make sense? And by interviewing somebody from a near country like Canada, or in your case, another Latin American country, you might be surprised at some of the differences that you didn't notice before that come out in the conversation. So yes, you can certainly do that. So if you want to grab an Eric Knudsen or somebody like that, and talk to him about Canada, yeah, that would be okay. Yep. But only one, right? And don't tell him I sent you. All right. Late assignments, just don't do it. And please don't turn anything in after the Friday before. That finals week is just too crazy. So whatever you're going to turn in, have it in by Friday. When I say 50%, that's the minimum. Okay, I will usually give you more than that depending on the reason why it was late. I'm a softie sometimes. Don't take advantage of that. All right, here's your grading for the course. You can see the breakdown of everything there. All right. And here's the schedule. So you can see that you don't have anything to do at the beginning there. We're getting the ball rolling. We'll be talking about some of the dimensions. You will recognize these from Intro to Missions, but Intro to Missions, we did a very, very basic presentation of each one. The first quest will be over everything up to risk, including the cultural value of risk. Okay, that'll be included on the quest. No, I'm sorry, just a second. Let me go back. Okay, I didn't put it up here. I thought I think, I'm going to have to check with my wife. I think yeah, this quest is due at midnight on the 27th, but it will not include achievement because we will have just done that in class that day. So the first quest only goes through risk. That makes sense? But the quest has to be taken on Canvas by midnight. All the assignments are due on midnight the day that they're plotted on the calendar. My wife takes care of setting all this up for me. Without her, I'd be working at McDonald's if I was lucky. So we are going to have a visitor, Reverend Bill Jenkin. I asked him to come and talk about the difference. He has served the Lord in Montana, Florida, and Michigan. And he talks about cultural differences within the United States in those regions. And it's fascinating. He's got some really interesting things to say. All right. Okay. I think everything else here is, now what I'm going to do, when you guys choose your articles, that's going to go in this right column over here, okay? That's why this is blank. See, it says presenters. So I'm going to start plotting you on here. And another advantage of, I'll let you choose the date you want to present. If I were you, I'd get it on early, get it out of the way, be done with it, It's not a huge assignment. Reading an article and just highlighting some things to share with us in class for 5 minutes is not a big, long assignment. So, when you choose it, let me know if you want to go early or late, and I'll get you plotted on there. Okay. Final exam, tentatively, I think that's the date for it according to the normal final exam schedule. And the rest of the stuff is just, yes, I'm available, come see me. You have any questions, I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. I always get embarrassed if I see that I've missed an email and it's a week old. I'll try to avoid that as best I can. Questions about the course, assignments, anything has to do with this class? Yes, Val? No, I'm talking about written sources, yeah. Yep, that wouldn't include the person. Anybody else? I guess I have a few minutes. Does anybody already have an article in mind? You saw one that grabbed you and you'd like to claim that one right now? Pam? I'm sorry, that thing blowing, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you repeat it? Here, let me go back up here to the list. Is it on this one or the first one? Which one is it? Oh, the Flaw of the Excluded Middle. You just picked probably one of the richest art. That's the one that the online students are going to be reading all together. It is a fantastic article, and everybody's going to. Wait, did I say everybody's? No, not everybody's going to read it. I would encourage everybody to read that article. It is really, really good. But yes, I'll give you that. I forgot a pen. Could I kindly borrow somebody's pen to write down? Sorry about that. Thing. Emma, you have one? Okay, just 1 second here. So, okay, Pam, excluded middle. Emma, the difference bonding makes. And by the way, I'm going to go on and put these on here so they'll be on your calendar. Okay, I don't know which one of you had your hand up for Liz. Okay, oral learners, making disciples of oral learners. Okay, Grayson. Ooh, we got a fight breaking out here. I'm sorry, what's it called again? Okay. Does anybody know what the name of that science is of communicating the gospel? Well, right. Gospel through stories. All right, who was next? Did Nina, do you have another one? Huh? She took her. Oh, okay. Okay. So is he or isn't he? Is God colorblind? That's a really good one too. They're all really good. Spicy. Okay. Oh, okay. Let me go back up here. The viable missionary. Okay, who else? Yeah, Nina. Ooh. Do missionaries destroy cultures? Okay, anybody else got one? Oh, sure. Yeah. Of, 27, all right. Yeah. 20th of this month? Ooh, yes. 120. Yeah. Tuesday and Thursdays. Yeah, any class day. Except, not the ones already chosen. The 20th and 27th of this month are already chosen. Yeah, Val? Yes. Role of culture in communication. Good. Date? Or don't you care? All right, that's fine. Sure can. Yep. Gotcha. Anybody else have an article in mind they want to choose? First of February. Okay. By the way, Abby, do you go ABI or ABY? ABBY. Okay. Anybody else? Title or date? Okay. Well then, oh, yeah, Anna. I don't think so. All right. Communication and social structure. You have a date in mind or not? Okay, that's fine. All right. Last call. Anybody else want to choose a title? All right, then by Thursday, you can either email me or by Thursday. Let me just read off the ones again that are already chosen in case you want to make a mental note. Flow of the excluded middle, difference bonding makes, oral learners. I don't have the whole titles down here, I guess. Why communicate the gospel by stories? Is God colorblind or colorful? The viable mission. Do missionaries destroy cultures? Role of culture and communication and social structures. Those are the ones that are taken. Okay. All right. That's all I have for today. So next time you come back, and if anybody is able to come in right at the beginning of class to help set up two and two tables, that'll get us rolling. Thank you very much.